As always, we'll begin with 3 deep breaths. Take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, in again through the nose, out through the mouth, last one in through the nose, and out through the mouth. Today's topic is doing nervous system work doesn't mean you're regulated. I really want to talk about the truth about regulation. And so if you're new to Wolf Mother Podcast, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. If you're not new to Wolf Mother Podcast, welcome back. And this is piggybacking off of the last episode, which was a calming your nervous system practice and meditation. And after I recorded that, I was making an Instagram story and I ended up saying, just because you do nervous system regulation practices on a daily basis doesn't mean you're regulated. And then I thought, okay, actually, let me sit back down. This is an episode I've wanted to do for a while and I just haven't. I do have notes on this, and you know that that's rare for me to have notes, but I feel like this is a really important topic, so I want to make sure that I have notes on this. And I also have notes on it because this is a question and a topic that comes up often when I'm working with clients, whether that's in group settings or in one-on-one work. And so, okay, let's take a deep breath in already. In through the nose, out through the mouth. There's a joke about yoga teachers, right? That look at the yoga teachers. They're not necessarily calm, even though they meditate and they do pranayama, which means breath work, and all this other stuff. So there's a big joke about that in the community. But I do want you to think of this because this is something that I've heard as a reflection from people many times. I do breath work every day. I meditate every day. I journal every day. Whatever I do yoga asana, qigong, whatever it is, I do this spiritual or self-help practice every single day. So I should have a regulated nervous system. And I understand the thought process behind that, but just because we show up every single day and do these practices doesn't necessarily mean that our nervous system has unlearned all of the things that it had learned up until that point. If you came out the womb and your parents or whoever raised you and your community focused on nervous system regulation practices as soon as you were a baby and a toddler, then maybe we're having a different conversation. But most likely what occurred was that you were born and whoever raised you maybe didn't have the best nervous system regulation practices. And maybe they had some, but they didn't have all. And other things happened to you as you got older. Maybe you grew up in a household that had very regulated nervous systems, but then you got to teenagehood and young adulthood and you maybe chose different things that were not so regulated for your body and your mind. Regardless of how you got here, once you start doing the breath work and the meditation, that doesn't necessarily mean that the way your body was programmed and wired has completely gone out the window because you've even done 10 years every day of breath work. Not saying that that can't make you feel like you have a regulated nervous system, and maybe you do personally have a regulated nervous system. I'm responding to the question that I get often when people are like, I do this shit every day and I still feel myself feeling XYZ. Why is that? And I'm like, well, this situation obviously upset your nervous system. So the reality is we do these practices so it creates the capacity for our nervous system to handle certain things. You're going to get anxious. You're going to be fearful. And I love this. I am not sure if I've said this on the podcast yet, but a few months ago, one of my teachers in a gathering that we had said something, because someone else in the gathering was like, I choose to not live from fear and I don't hold the frequency of fear. And I love the way that my teacher responded so matter-of-factly and was like, well, actually, like, fear is helpful. And that is your intuition sometimes saying, like, this is not for me. This is not right. And I just really appreciated she gave no attitude and no clap back and was just very matter-of-factly. So anyway, with that being said, like, just because you have a regulated nervous system doesn't mean that you're not going to get overwhelmed. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get anxious. It doesn't mean that you're not going to experience fear. It doesn't mean that you're never going to be emotionally activated. You could meet somebody with the most pristine nervous system that you've ever met, and one thing could happen in their life that completely changes the way that they respond to everything else externally in their life going forward. Does this make sense? Take a deep breath in. Breathe out. We have to have stress responses. Just like my teacher saying, like, well, fear is sometimes your intuition telling you that something's wrong. If you don't have a stress response when you're driving, that's a problem. You need to be able to react to somebody cutting you off or somebody doing something where maybe you need to slam on the brakes for a moment. That is, your nervous system is going to get activated in that moment, whether you're the driver or just somebody in the car. So I hope that example kind of paints the picture. We need our nervous system to have the capacity to move forward from these things in an easeful and quicker way, but it doesn't mean that you're just happy-go-lucky all the time and nothing bothers you. That's a completely different issue that we see when we do this work. The person who's like, I'm literally not bothered by anything. And I'm like, you need to put the marijuana down because we have other things we need to work on. So anyway, my notes here, right? I want to talk about what regulation is versus what dysregulation is, because I think that's also something that's conflated in this online space. Now, again, in this online space, and now you're listening to this on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. This is the online space. Hello. And I recognize that. So when you listen to Wolf Mother podcast, look things up on your own. Do your own research, or something that my brother, he used to be a personal trainer. Now he's like my own personal trainer because he doesn't train the public anymore. But something that he will always tell people, even today, if they ask him questions about physical fitness, is, okay, well, you got that information. Did you cross-check it? Okay, look somebody else up. I'm going to give you this advice. Go to another personal trainer. If you see a personal trainer at the gym, ask them the same question and see how they respond. Take that into consideration. See how different people who have had different lived experiences and are in different bodies, age, gender, race, all those things, see how they respond. And so look this up on your own if you feel so inclined to. And then come back and maybe leave a comment somewhere about what you found out. So I wrote here, a regulated nervous system is not perfection, because a regulated nervous system does not mean that you are perfectly acting all the time. To me, a regulated nervous system is being and flowing like water. It's about fluidity. It's about flexibility. You're able to shift and move with whatever your external world is doing and not get rocked completely over the edge. Again, not that it's not going to bring you to your edge, but it's not going to throw you overboard immediately. So regulation, and I have a few bullet points, so I'm just going to list them off. Noticing when you are overwhelmed sooner rather than later. That is a fucking skill. Because there are often situations in my own life, right? So I'm drawing, all of these bullet points that I wrote are like things that I've witnessed in myself and things that I've also witnessed in clients. It is such a skill to notice that you are overwhelmed sooner rather than later, especially when you get pulled back into situations with family, friends. Maybe you've worked at the same place for a long time, so you've had the same coworkers for a very long time. It's easy to get sucked back into those things. But if in the moment you can recognize, ooh, wow, I'm starting to get overwhelmed, that is an incredible skill. Maybe right now you're only able to recognize that you're getting overwhelmed, but you're not able to fix it. Still celebrate that you're able to witness that you're getting overwhelmed in that moment. Taking a breath before reacting. That is also a skill, and I feel that falls underneath regulation. Why? Think about how many times somebody has said something to you, and as somebody who is Italian American, born and raised in Staten Island, who loves to fight, so many times people say something and I immediately want to respond. Immediately I want to say something right away. But taking a breath, I have noticed, has made a major difference in my life. There was a point in time where my friends were calling me the fire-breathing dragon. And I'm smirking because yes, it's silly, but also how far I've come. I'm very proud of myself that I don't respond like the fire-breathing dragon anymore. Part of that is taking a breath before reacting. Because if somebody says something to me and I want to respond the way I want to respond, it's probably not going to fucking be nice. And I know myself. And so taking a breath before reacting to something can make the world of a difference. That is regulation. Recovering from stress quicker is also regulation. Because if you go through a situation and that stress lingers in your body for 7 days versus 24 hours, that has a major impact. And we're not talking about this now, but maybe leave a comment if you want me to go deeper into this topic. That I just finished another trauma training and I've been so down the rabbit hole of stress being a silent killer and how important it is that my generation, so I'm born in 1996, I am in my Saturn return, but my generation, the generation above me and the generation below me, like, we have the opportunity to recognize that stress is a silent killer, right? Most of us have parents or grandparents that are in the Gen X and Boomer and maybe above age range. And so they don't recognize how much some of the stress that they've kept in their body has also been a thing to, I don't want to say ruin their health, but in some situations, yeah, ruin their health. Another one that I think is regulation. Asking for space instead of staying in the situation. And you could also include with that, like, instead of people pleasing, asking for space. If somebody says to you, this is what's going on right now, and you don't have the capacity for it, you say, I need X amount of time. This is something that I tell a lot of my clients that are in relationships. This is a big piece of regulation, nervous system work that I think is important. If you get into an argument with your partner, I'm just going to use romantic partnership for the example. If you get into an argument with your partner and you turn and you say, okay, I need 10 minutes to myself before I can continue the rest of this conversation. You put a 10-minute timer on and you honor that time, right? But you, instead of people pleasing and saying, okay, let me just get the conversation over with, you took yourself out of the space for a second, and in those 10 minutes, don't pick up your phone and fucking scroll. Take those 10 minutes to go outside, get your feet in the grass. Maybe you don't have grass that you can go to. Turn your shower on. Put your feet in cold water. Maybe you do a little bit of breath work. Maybe you stretch a little bit. You jump up and down. You do the practice that I just uploaded before this episode. Like, you do something for you. And to kind of complete that advice that I usually give on that, it might look longer than 10 minutes. And if the situation is dire and you need to respond in the moment, you may not have more than 10 minutes before you need to respond, right? This is all also subjective. There are certain situations that we find ourselves in where you have to respond to something immediately. But if this is an argument between you and a partner or you and a family member or a friend that you have on a consistent basis, you can also lay that expectation and agreement of, I need 3 days before we can finish this conversation. But again, in those 3 days, put it on the calendar. Have it be that there's a meeting between you and this person again, and you're going to finish that conversation. Usually this happens between anxious attachment and avoidant attachment. Avoidant attachment is like, I need more space before I can respond to this. And anxious attachment is like, please, can we talk it out right now? So lay out that agreement. But you can do that not just in romantic partnership, in all the relationships that you have, right? You can take control of that. Maybe it's 3 days, maybe it's only 3 hours. You just need 3 hours to step away from it, journal a little bit, maybe call a friend, and then you can come back to the conversation. Take a deep breath in, breathe out. Oh man, we're already at 15 minutes. I was trying to make this a 15-minute episode. God, I talk a lot. Thank you guys if you're new here, thank you so much for being new here. For those of you that have been here since the first episode or like from the beginning, thank you so much. For those of you that have been here listening to my rants since they were on Instagram in like 2019 and 2020, I love you so much. The next thing on my list, crying without shame. That is regulation. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It's allowing the emotion to come to the surface and move out. When people come and they sit with plant medicine, right? And we talk about purgative plant medicines, people assume when we talk about ayahuasca or kambo that they are just immediately going to be inside of their bucket throwing up purging. Although that is an option, also it can come from the south, you might need the toilet, but also you could be sweating. You could be coughing, you could be yawning, you can be crying, and all of that falls underneath purging. So in that moment, I always tell people when they're like, oh, I hate when I get into arguments with people and I just immediately start crying. I'm like, why don't you see that as a superpower? Because there are so many people that are not able to allow themselves to cry, but cry without the shame. Allow yourself to cry, clean your eyes up, allow the tears to do what they have to do. Think of it as that's the water flowing. That's the inner river coming out, and then respond when it feels safe for you to respond, if you can. Resting without guilt is another regulated nervous system experience. That one, I think, is complex because we exist in a world of consumerism and capitalism and extreme productivity. Resting without guilt. And this is something, I don't know, but I feel like I did say this in an episode within the last year. You can put time into your schedule to do nothing. And if someone says, hey, can you hang out Wednesday at 2 and go on a walk, but you've already scheduled in, sit and stare at the wall, you can say, no, I have to sit and stare at the wall. You don't even have to tell them that you have to sit and stare at the wall. You can just say, no, I'm busy. But resting without that guilt. And I don't necessarily mean resting and scrolling on your phone for 4 hours, watching a 4-hour documentary or docu-series. I mean schedule in that time to stare at the wall, which is a meditation technique. I forget exactly where. I don't know if that's Tibetan, but you can just stare at the wall. Or for me, something that I love to do, I love laying face down in the grass. Like there is something about having your whole body just in the grass, on the grass, attached to the earth that to me feels so good. But for me to do that without feeling guilt, sometimes I need to have a timer on. And some people think that that's crazy. They're like, why would you time your amount of just face in grass? And for me, it's because I want to lay here for longer than 5 minutes, but I don't know how much time is going to go by and I don't want too long to go by. So then I start to overthink it. And then I do get guilty if I lay there for a long time and I'm like, oh my God, I laid here for a whole fucking hour and I didn't get this done and I didn't get that done. To me, it feels good for me to put on the 15-minute timer, lay in the fucking grass with my whole tits in the grass. Just we're there, you know? And for the 15 minutes, I get to do it without guilt. So maybe that's a practice you can also take into your own life. And then this one I'm still working on in my own personal life, and I probably will continue. Feeling anxious, but staying connected to yourself. Oftentimes when people have a dysregulated nervous system and they start to feel anxious, immediately that disconnect comes. We're not fully feeling the body sensations that are happening for us. Sometimes we're disconnected from the situation that's happening in front of us. We're trying to escape within our mind. What else can I think of? Can I pick up my phone and scroll? Can I go here and do this? Sometimes even that looks like calling a friend and maybe not talking to them about the issue, but just filling your time and space with something else. Being anxious and still being present with your anxiety is definitely, to me, a sign of a regulated nervous system because you can stay with it, but it's a lot easier said than done. So I'm still working on that in my own personal life. For those of you that are new to the podcast or maybe don't know, I was on SSRIs for 5 years. I was diagnosed with manic depressive disorder as well as anxiety disorder. And anxiety has been a teacher of mine in my life that I have experienced for half of my life now. And although I hate it, right, most of the time because anxiety sucks, I do see the beauty in the teachings of anxiety and bodily sensations. Take a deep breath in. Breathe out. So what is the consensus of everything that I just said? A regulated nervous system has the capacity to hold all of those things. It doesn't mean that a regulated nervous system does not experience any of those things. You can be fucking depressed and have a really good capacity for a regulated nervous system. Life, duality, humans, we're complex. We're so simple and silly, and yet we're also so complex. It's a beautiful fucking thing. I want to talk about what dysregulation can look like. Important to note here, dysregulation is also a subjective experience, just like regulation is. Dysregulation is also really subjective to people, because I'm sure you guys have heard fight or flight, freeze or fawn. Our lived experiences, if you're watching this on YouTube, you have seen me hit my head on my altar table behind me so many times in this episode. That's hysterical. Back to what we were speaking about. I lost my train of thought on that. I'll come back to it. I just wanted to say that a dysregulated nervous system looks different and feels different for everybody. Oh, I was talking about responses. When we have our lived experiences, they also, in the same way that a healthy, happy home creates a healthy, happy adult, usually, right? If we are shaped by certain experiences in our younger and formative years, that creates how we respond to things. If you grew up in a household where every time you had an issue and you went to an adult or whoever was raising you in the household, and that adult didn't have the capacity to help you or support you, and you were asking regular questions, right? Like questions that kids ask all the time. And kids got so many fucking questions all the time. But that adult, instead of meeting you in your curiosity, continuously shut you down and was like, that's either a stupid question or I don't have time for you. At a certain point, you'll learn how to fawn, and you will just, okay, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and I'm just going to let it happen, and I'm not going to bring it. Or maybe you freeze as you get older and you just let people do what they're going to do because you don't want to be rejected. Just an example. Okay, so sometimes dysregulation, and here's the thing, I have like two columns, loud and quiet. What do I mean by loud and quiet? Let's first go through loud. Loud is outward irritability, snapping, panic, racing thoughts, hypervigilance, control freak trying to control everyone, and constantly feeling on, like there's no off button, like you are always at war and you're waiting for the other soldiers to come in. To me, those are loud ways that we experience. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're screaming at everybody in your life, because you could experience all of these internally, even the snapping and the irritability. Although when we think snapping and irritability, we think about flipping out on somebody, you could be snappy or irritable with your own internal self. But these are just loud expressions of that. What I think of when I think of quiet dysregulation is numbness, exhaustion, shutting down. I have a star next to this, scrolling for hours. I know I've mentioned it multiple times, but it's something that I've experienced in my life, and I have been seeing more and more in, I don't know, I feel like the 50 and older is not so much, I'm going to be honest, but like definitely the 40s and younger crowd of my clients, the scrolling for hours, disconnection from yourself, not being able to feel bodily sensations, brain fog, feeling melancholy, like emotionally flat, if that makes sense. And then not knowing how you feel at all, right? Sometimes you talk to somebody and they're in that melancholy stage where they're kind of just like apathetic and they're like, whatever. And then you have other people that are like, I actually have no clue how I feel. I can't express it through sound. I can't express it through movement. I can't express it through words. And there's no shame in any of this. So those are the two, loud and quiet. And so sometimes we think that we're calm because of certain things like this, but actually we are collapsed in a different way, right? And so a regulated nervous system is something that's connected to all of this stuff in a healthy way. Distinction there, right? dysregulated nervous systems are often disconnected from all of this, or in a lot of state, I know we use the word overwhelm a lot, but I want to use the word confusion. We're in a lot of state of confusion. What are you going to do today? I don't know. I'm kind of confused on what I want to do. You know, oftentimes I'll hear, well, I wanted to do something creative today. I wanted, like, for example, I wanted to paint, but then I just got stuck scrolling on my phone. Like, the sentence, I got stuck scrolling on my phone, I have heard way too many times. But that's because they're dysregulated. So instead of having the regulated nervous system to override that and say, okay, I do have the capacity to take out my, what am I using as the example? Paint. Taking out my canvas and my colors and my brushes. They don't have the capacity to do any of that. In that situation, I actually want to respond to that. As some of you know, I've talked often about a cozy corner when I used to work with the special needs population in the school, and I was also working in community habilitation. There was something that I came up with, which was the idea of a cozy corner. And obviously this already existed before I came around. It was just what I did in the classrooms and spaces that I was in. And it included certain things like a beanbag chair that already had a basket of, say, fidget toys, squishy toys, different type of tactile things for the kids to play with. There was different types of crayons and colored pencils, different types of paper for them to color on, you know, anything that I felt was good. So in that moment, and as I've obviously expanded in my business and in the capacity that I have to serve people, when I tell my clients to get themselves a cozy corner, it depends on the client and what they need. Because I work from anybody that's like a regular 9-to-5er to somebody who's a blue collar worker to somebody who is a professional in a different sense, or a hippie like me. And so the cozy corner looks different for everybody. But for some people, a cozy corner is, I really love to read. It's just, you know, I want to have a cup of tea and I want there to be the right lighting and I want there to be this and that. Literally set up a corner in your bedroom. They have those electric tea kettles now. Get an electric tea kettle. Have a bottle of water over there that you can replenish every day. Keep a basket over there that has cozy socks. Maybe you like to read with a specific lamp. Leave the lamp over there. Like, you can create your cozy corner to be whatever it is that you need it to be. But oftentimes when I find that people are dysregulated and they're struggling to do the thing that they need to do, I understand that it's a capacity sense of even setting up the activity. So create yourself a cozy corner, and sometimes that curbs it, and then you can get back into that creation. It's no shame in the game that you don't even have the capacity to set it up. I feel that same way. I have too many things that I want to do. So maybe you're listening and you're like, Dan, how am I supposed to have my art stuff, my music stuff, my sewing stuff, all the things? Bitch, I know. I haven't figured that out either. I need like 8 different cozy corners to like soothe me, okay? Pick one thing and stick to it for now. And maybe I'll update you guys if I figure out how to have a plethora of things in your cozy corner. Let's take a deep breath in. Breathe out. Now here comes the conclusion of this conversation that was double the amount of time that I was intending. A dysregulated nervous system is not about being cool, calm, and collected all the time. A regulated nervous system is about having the capacity to experience life around you and not get so sucked into it that it either creates a chronic illness, any sort of illness. It creates underlying chronic stress. It throws you off, not just for hours, but days and weeks and months. So having a regulated nervous system is just expanding your capacity 1% more. And that doesn't just come through your daily practices, although your daily practices are very important. If you are waking up in the morning and immediately you are rolling over, you're grabbing your phone and you're scrolling. And I don't want to hear it from the professionals that say to me, well, I have to wake up in the morning and I have to check my emails right away for work. Why? Where can you set a boundary with your job that, like, I can't be answering emails at 5:15 a.m. Okay, if I wake up at 5:15 a.m., maybe by 6:15 a.m. I can answer emails by then, but not 5:15 a.m. Right? And so this is all subjective, right? And maybe you're like, no, I absolutely have to answer emails at 5:15 a.m. as soon as I wake up. As soon as you're done with those emails, I need you to go do something for yourself. That daily practice is not going to be the thing that makes your nervous system regulated, but it's going to be a piece of the puzzle. A regulated nervous system is an entire puzzle piece coming together. And sometimes the pieces fit and sometimes they don't. You could be doing breath work every single day for 3 years, and then all of a sudden, guess what? That thing is not calming you down the way it used to. And that's okay. We're not meant to find one practice and do it every single day for the rest of our fucking lives. You're a person that's going to grow, you're going to shift, you're going to change. If you're somebody that's in a female body, also, you're going to go through cycles with your menstrual cycle. You're also going to be going through cycles of the earth outside. Certain things that feel really good as practices in the summer don't feel so fucking good in the winter, and vice versa, and that's okay. There's a piece of this, right, this big nervous system puzzle, is that one of the pieces we have to lay down is recognizing it's never going to be perfect. You could drink 100 cups of ayahuasca. You can go to therapy every single week for the rest of your life. You could get energy healing sessions done every single week. You could constantly be reading self-help books and yada yada, and your whole fucking social media feed could be inspiring things. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be perfectly regulated. You are a human being. And so that piece is space and grace for you to experience the whole range of being a human being. It's never going to look perfect. You don't know what life has in store for you. It's just figuring out what soothes you physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, so that maybe when shit hits the fan, you've got something you can pull out of your back pocket. Whether that's, I need to go play with this specific texture of slime. Before I respond to these emails, I need to take a cold shower, or just put my feet in the cold river nearby, in the cold shower. I need to put my feet on some ice. If you know Dylan, he's always got people putting their feet in ice or on snow outside, because it brings you to being present with yourself. And that is an extremely important piece to regulating your nervous system. If you don't know how to be with you when things are uncomfortable, your nervous system is going to continue to be dysregulated despite all the meditation and plant medicine that you do. Take a deep breath in. Breathe out. I also don't want you to feel like you're failing. If you're like, okay, but I'm doing all these things and it's not creating a better nervous system capacity, you're still